Dear members, I understand that we're a quorum and that there's some others who've joined us online. May I appeal to everyone who's in the room to kind of come together in the middle so that we can mark this occasion feeling intimately close to each other as we are. I know that there are people who need to slip away, but I'll still encourage you to come to the middle so that we're all kind of seated together. And I know that our photographer likes that. No, you're already sitting in the middle. You're in the right place, yes. The
One treasurer.
and an honorary treasurer, Greg. Thank you very much. So let me call the meeting to order and thank each and every one of you who's here in person, as well as those who are with us online, for this opportunity for us to gather together and celebrate as members of the Royal African Society, both individual and corporate members. I think one of our members must have ordered a very special day in London because the weather is very nice. I was told that in London, if you have 2 days of the weather being nice, and the third day is usually the one that has thunderstorm, and this is the third day in a row. So one of us must have ordered such a beautiful day. I want to also just say that we have a lot to celebrate, and as you all know, we have a reception right after the AGM to celebrate our achievements, but also to pre-launch the Africa Rights Festival, which will be later in this year, at the end of September this year. And so you will have to help me try and make sure that we finish in time for us to go over to another building where we're going to have the reception. Fortunately, our CEO, as I prefer to call him, Dr. Nick Westcott, and the team have sent around all of the documents to all members, and I know that given the quality of members that we are, that we've read most of the documents, so I hope that things can go along very, very quickly in that regard. So let me then read the notice of the meeting. The 122nd Annual General Meeting of the Royal Africa Society will take place, or is taking place, today at the School of Oriental and African Studies, today the 15th of June, having started at 5 p.m. The agenda is as follows: a confirmation of minutes of the 121st Annual General Meetings that was held on Monday the 13th of June 2022. The audited accounts, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The audited accounts for 2022, the elections, the reappointment of Chariot House Limited as our auditors, and a presentation by our CEO, Dr. Nick Westcott, which would also include presenting the 2022 annual report, and we'll have some time at the end for any other business. So let me now go to the first agenda item, except if there's any item that any member would like to see covered that is not covered. Thank you for accepting the proposed agenda. You'll recall that the draft minutes for last year's annual general meetings, which took place on the 13th of June 2022 was circulated along with other papers. And I'm told by the CEO that we did not receive any request for any amendment. So may I invite a proposer and a seconder for the approval of the minutes. Thank you, Vice Chair, Dr. Titi Bankoye, and Mr. Andrew Skipper. Thank you. And I assume that's been recorded by the Secretary. Let me now let's move to the third agenda item, the audited accounts for 2022. And I'd like to invite the Honorary Treasurer, Greg Cranston, to present the Trustees' Annual Report and Statutory Accounts for 2022, which were also circulated earlier with the agenda to members. Greg.
Thank you, Chair. So the Society had a record year 2022, generating revenue of £1.04 million, a combination of inflows which are shown in the simplified profit and loss account, and also those inflows which are attached to specific projects. The comparable figure for the year earlier was 650,000. Everything's being rounded up here. The driver for this surge in revenue was basically our anniversary gala in November, which attracted several new corporate sponsors and which accounted for 2/3 of the increase in revenue. The increase was almost £400,000. Alongside the gala, we should also highlight the 10th edition of Film Africa, which managed break-even, and our inaugural CEO lecture in October, which is given by Bill Withers of Standard Chartered Bank. The donations and legacies rose by close to 50% to £146,000, boosted by donations around the gala, support from the Open Society Foundation, and a generous legacy in addition. In aggregate, our several projects posted a surplus. Our journal, African Affairs, again generated the single largest contribution to net income. Total spending, which in this case is staff costs and overheads, increased by 24% to £490,000, due small increase in headcount and adjustments to salaries to compensate for cost of living increases with which we're all familiar. The surge in revenue, however, produced a net operating surplus of £180,000 compared to the net deficit the previous year of £30,000, 2021. As much as £150,000 of the surplus can be attributed to the gala. It's worth noticing at this point that society would have achieved a small surplus without the gala. We do have several revenue streams which provide a buffer of sorts. Given developments in Ukraine and elsewhere in the big wide world, it's no surprise that we suffered a loss on the revaluation of our investments. This reduced the published surplus from 180,000 operating to 140,000. So the Society closed the year 2022 with unused funds, £580,000, of which £550,000 are freely available for our use as we see fit. This cushion against external shocks is substantially above what we regard as a minimum level, something like £250,000 above. COVID-19, of course, no longer rules our corporate and personal lives, as it did, but we're not complacent. So we have a budget for 2023, which is cautious in terms of revenue. By cautious, we mean that the assumptions incorporate little more than revenue guaranteed or practically guaranteed. For reasons already shared, the rise in the headcount and cost of living pressures, the cost base in the year ahead, in this year I should say, is likely to be more than 60% higher than in 2019. It'll be a challenging year, and the financial result will obviously bear no comparison to 2022's, the year of the anniversary gala. That said, we're confident that our strong team will rise to the occasion. Our director will cover the work in progress, I know, and our general prospects in his analysis later in our AGM. Finally, in conclusion, I should like to offer our thanks to Chariot House, our auditors, and our accountant, Brian Johnson, who is sitting in this room. Together they make my life very easy. Thank you.
May I invite members to ask any questions to our Honorary Treasurer that they may have. Well, maybe I should lead another applause. It means it's very well done. Thank you very much. Thank you. So may I ask the AGM to adopt the annual report and accounts, and I'd like to invite a proposer and a seconder, and please state your names for the record. Thank you, Andrew Skipper. Yes, sir. Please state your name. Alistair Boyd. Thank you very much. As our Honorary Treasurer mentioned, the full annual report will be presented later by our CEO. But let me take the opportunity to put on record my gratitude, starting with all the Society's members, individuals, and corporate members, our sponsors, and donors. Without you, we would not be able to have the financial security that we enjoy today. I also want to thank the editors of the Society's journal, African Affairs, Professor Ricardo Suarez de Oliveira, Professor Abrina Manji, Dr. George Bob Miller, who's based in Ghana, and I hope has joined us virtually, Professor Scott Strauss, who's based in the US, and I also hope has joined us, and our editorial assistant, Busani Mpofo. You have sustained the journal status as the world's #1 for African affairs. Thank you. To our staff, you have labored long and hard. Yours has been a labor of love to deliver the Society's programs, events, notably the gala, the festival, the film festival, and numerous publications, notably Africa Arguments. I also want to acknowledge all the volunteers who have helped along the way. And last year I mentioned all of the staff names, but I'll just mention our 2 new staff, Nico Leo, who's our temporary admin and finance manager, and Akaite Arthur, our education advisor. To the members, to my colleagues on the council, thank you for generously giving of your time, of your resources, purely on a voluntary basis, and in particular for the support each one of you has given to ensure that we've been able to generate and increase the income and the revenues of the Society. I'm hoping that we'll continue to do better. I'm also hoping that we'll have more resources so that we can continue to show care and attention to our staff at a time that's particularly difficult, and that we can continue to promote Africa's voice globally. Thank you very much to all of you. Let me now turn to our next agenda item, elections to the Council. The following members of our council are standing down at the end of their current terms: Baroness Lindsay Northover, Ms. Anne McCormick, and Ms. Sotoye Dagogo. On behalf of myself and the council, I want to express our profound gratitude and great appreciation for your great work and support of the society over many years. We hope that you will remain a member of our family, the Royal African Society, and that we can continue to rely on your great support. We also wish you great success in all of your other activities. I know that none of the members are...
We have one, just arrived. Baroness Northover.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that Baroness Andover is here.
Bang on cue.
I would like to us to present our token of appreciation, a certificate to you, Baroness, and if you can come over, I'd be delighted to be able to do that. I don't know if we have any of the other two members here.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
The following members are reaching the end of their current terms and are standing again for re-election: Jide Olarawaju, our Vice Chair; Andrew Skipper, who has recently become one of our Vice Chairs; and Gregory Cranston, our Honorary Treasurer. Please join me in thanking them for accepting to stay on as members of the council and in their roles. In the society, we're very particular about diversity in terms of skills, in terms of gender, ethnicity, geography, and we're honored that the council, having assessed and approved the recommendations of the Governance and Nominations Committee, that the following are standing for election to the council: Hannah O'Leary, Gina Dean, Babaka Carr, Keith Shiri, and Edward Mallow. As you know, their bios have been circulated, and I hope that you will join me as I propose that they be elected, re-elected, and selected en bloc with one single vote. In addition, we have co-opted members, the Lord Johnny Oates, who is co-chair of the All Parties Parliamentary Group for Africa, and who is joining us as Baroness Northover, is standing down. We also have Dr. Kali Kotizi, the President in office of the African Studies Association, United Kingdom. I'm also pleased to appoint as council as member of the council, Professor Brina Manji, who succeeds Professor Suarez as lead editor of our journal, African Affairs. So as I asked, please, can we elect, re-elect, select, unblock with a single vote? And I request a proposer and a seconder to give their names for the record. Yes, madam. Andrea Lowe, our vice chair. Thank you very much. So let me thank all the newly elected for joining the society, the council, and supporting the work of the society. Now let's go to our fifth agenda item, the reappointment of Chariot House as auditors. I propose the reappointment of Chariot House Limited as the society's auditors, and I'd like to echo what our honorary treasurer said about their stellar work, particularly in carefully and rigorously auditing the society for 2022. May I request a proposer and a seconder to announce their names for the record? Andrew Skipper and Baroness Northover. Thank you. I did ask for help in making sure that I move along as quickly as possible, and so I want to say thank you for all the support I've gotten, because I think I've got a few minutes ahead of time, and I'd like to invite our CEO, as I prefer to call him, Dr. Nick Westcott, to summarize the report, the annual report for 2022, on the Society's activities in 2022 and the prospects for this year. I know that you've prepared a slide pack with a number of additional bits of information that will be of interest to members. So may I hand over to you?
Thank you very much. Yes. So I hope we are now able to get the slides underway. And I will just, this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour through last year, but I'm both very happy and very sad. Yes, if you want to take a seat elsewhere, you might as well, because then you'll be able to see the slides as well. So I'm very happy and sad. I'm happy because, as the Treasurer has already told you, the Society is in rude health. And for the first time ever, our revenue, our cash flow has exceeded £1 million, which is a remarkable step forward. But I'm very sad because this is my last annual general meeting as director. It won't be my last as a member, because I intend to remain active. As the Treasurer has already said, the money matters. And I will have a quick look. Oh, this is our annual report. If you haven't picked up a copy on the way in, pick up a copy on the way out, as they are available. And this is a sort of very brief summary of what's in there, but it's still worth reading as it's full of interesting facts. This shows you where our money came from, and is interesting for three reasons. As you can see, the yellow chunk here on the left-hand side, 21%, that is the revenue from our journal. For many years, that made up a third or a half of our income, but it is now shrinking below a quarter. That is for two reasons. Open source publishing, which provides a lot of academic material free, means that our income from the journal is actually in sort of gradual secular decline. But it also shows that the cake as a whole has got bigger. And while we still continue to get a reasonable income, thanks to OUP marketing the journal and the editor's fantastic work, so we still get a sizable chunk, but it is reducing. The largest chunk this year is the grey zone, at the bottom right-hand corner, which is corporate, from our corporate partners as members and sponsors for events. And this is the largest it has ever been. And that, again, was a huge credit to all the work that went into the gala and attracting in new corporate members. We're now at 32 corporate members, I believe, although I have a feeling one more joined this week, so we might be up to 33. And we are keen still to grow that number, but it's becoming increasingly important. And the other large segment at 18%, that is trusts and foundations, amongst whom we have a number of very sound, solid supporters who've given us multi-year funding, for which we're hugely appreciative. The Open Society Foundation, the Garfield Weston Foundation, Miles Borland Foundation, Brenthurst Foundation. And this is really important to us as well, and we're extremely grateful for that. So that's where you see 2% at the bottom, that is actually the individual membership. Now, obviously, individual membership is quite a small proportion, but we do hope in the future to increase the number of individual members so that we can actually expand that section. That will then provide good solid basis for future growth and reliability. Where does the money go to? This shows that, and the largest segment, over half, the yellow portion, that is celebration. That is celebrating what we do. It's not just parties. That includes, obviously, Africa Rights, which is one of our big festivals. It includes the gala. So, last year was fun. But it shows that that's a very significant part of our spending, to put those things on. And that's why we put a lot of effort into fundraising for it. This year it will be Africa Rights, and we are still raising money for it. If any of you know some pots of money lying around that can help support Africa Rights, it will be very welcome. The smallest section there, orange on the right-hand side, that is Learn. We have these 4 pillars. And Learn is small but very important. It's quite cheap but influential. So that includes African Arguments, that includes African Affairs, our journal, and also the work we do with ASA UK and our education programme. We are very keen to expand our education programme, and for this year we are hoping to put in some bids for serious funding, and that's why we're delighted to have Kitty Arthur here, who is helping us prepare those bids so that we can expand that segment, because education is, I think, in the future going to be an increasingly important part of what we do. Connect is largely the events program. I'll come on to that. And Debate is the APPG and African Arguments. We have our managing editor here, James Wan. But at the beginning of this year, we've taken on a full-time politics and society editor who is based in Nairobi, a well-known Kenyan journalist called Parcelelo Kantai. And that is going to be very important in the coming year, certainly in growing our impact. We'll see whether we can, so that will increase a bit, but we also need to make sure we can cover that by raising the revenue. There is an interesting story in relation to our membership. And you can see from this graph that we have, over the last 6 years, while I've been in charge, suffered quite serious swings in our membership. It started as had been around 1,000 for quite some time, and then a whole combination of factors, partly our sort of aging membership, in particular the fact that we were unable during COVID to hold the ASA UK conference. And that had been a major incentive for people to join because it gave them a discount on the conference. And there's a shifting pattern because up to 10 years ago, most of our members were academic or in the academic community or had worked specifically in Africa. And we're now sort of moving. And the reason we are starting to get it back up is partly we're bringing in a new demographic through our arts and culture membership, which is focused on a very different group of people, sort of young people in the diaspora. But again, it's going to be an ambition for the future to get that up back to 1,000 and beyond. And that will be one of the big challenges for my successor. We tried to portray our reach and impact. This isn't a very clear graphic, And I think we've been talking about it. We need to find better ways of measuring our impact. And this is sort of social media coverage. We have the numbers of people who attend our events. We have the readership of African Arguments, which is still around 1 million, but we're hoping to push that up beyond. In fact, with our new communications agency, Hudson Sandler, we've found ways this year that we can much better measure the true extent of our impact. So we will be coming back to you next year, I hope, with a very clear idea of where we're able to make that kind of impact. So the highlights of last year were obviously Film Africa. Again, we had 47 films from, in fact, 16 countries, but involving a lot more. In fact, if you look at the actors, the locations, and so on, it's nearly half countries in Africa were involved in some of those productions, one way or another. We had nearly 3,000 people through the door watching it, others watching it online through the BFI player. And again, this is sort of, it's still building impetus. It is the leading African film festival in this country, and we hope to build that up further next year. But it was very successful, and full credit to Desta and Sarah, who put a huge amount of work into making that the success that it was. We also had a visit from our royal patron, who came to one of our workshops, notable event, and he has continued to give us consistent support last year, which has been very good, and it got very good critical reviews, including the Financial Times. I think the first time we've had a mention for Film Africa in the Financial Times. Next year, even more. The other main highlight, of course, was the gala. Many of you were there. I hope you enjoyed it. But it was interesting that we were, to some extent, ahead of the curve in that our theme was Creative Africa. And those of you who watch television may have seen that Afua Hirsch has sort of taken this forward now in a series of programs about Creative Africa, and we got there first. So this is Al Fadi, the fashion designer. We had music, we had celebrities, we had a great crowd, we had African food, we had everything you could think of that was indeed creative, and it was a great event, and we will be having another one after I've left. As I mentioned before, education is important. Obviously, our partnership with ASA UK, they held their conference, the first one since COVID last year. It was innovative in a way because although we had fewer people physically present, it was designed to be done jointly with universities in Africa. So we had 2 days of hybrid conference involving the University of Ibadan and the University of Nairobi. And this is very much the pattern we want to follow on our educational side, to do it in partnership with African institutions in Africa. We'll be doing that. The APPG published its report on education in the British school curriculum. This is really important. It was warmly welcomed by James Cleverly when he was Minister of Education. He then moved, but we are still following that up. And one of the things it identified as inhibiting British schools from doing more on African heritage was the lack of resources. So we've been addressing that by organising some workshops to improve teacher awareness of the materials and make more materials available for students in schools. And this was a workshop on African kingdoms we did jointly with Professor Toby Green at KCL, King's College, and school teachers and the British Museum. And it's this kind of partnership that we want to build up for through the bids that we're putting in for funding this year, and move more materials into a wider selection of schools so we can improve the image of Africa as it's portrayed in the British educational system. That's really important work, and there's a lot still to do. African Affairs, I've already mentioned, it is, as Arunma has said, it is the #1 African studies journal in the world, and that's because our editors put in a huge amount of work. It publishes, I think, at least 50% African authors in it. It deliberately goes out and seeks and puts big effort into helping them publish in the top quality publications so that their voice is being heard in academia, as in the rest of the world. And we now have 4 editors so that we can actually put in that effort and make sure we're getting the best quality academic analysis. And a lot of the articles are very good. And those of you who don't read it every month, you should do so every quarter. It always has excellent analysis of what's going on, quite topical, as you also get in African Arguments. And as I mentioned, we are redoubling our efforts with now 2 editors, full-time editors. James has moved up to be managing editor and is also putting a lot more effort into the little green tag you can see there, climate. We're doing a lot more on environment. We will be building that up as we get towards COP28, and that, I think, will expand the footprint that we're able to have with African Arguments. Already it's very good, very widely read in Africa, very highly respected, and I anticipate we will have an even larger readership this year than last year, and James is looking very confident of that. Always good stuff there. Very quick reads. Africa Writes. What was interesting last year about Africa Writes is that normally, we have the big event here. This year we'll be doing the Africa Writes at the British Library as usual, but we are expanding our footprint in the UK by having these regional events, which we do in collaboration with local institutions, and Desta went to a number last year that we do in collaboration in the West Country, the Midlands, in the North. And that's, again, very important. So the off years, when we're not having a full festival, we want to make sure that the impetus is maintained, and not just in London, but throughout the country, where there's a growing audience for what Africa Writes draws attention to. And we have it never ceases to amaze me. Last year, on top of Film Africa and the Gala, we had 60 events. Well, that includes Africa, Film Africa and the Gala, so it's sort of 50. But we have a huge number of events. This picture here is of the business breakfast we organised for Togo. And that's the sort of thing that we do that not many other people do, is that there's countries that will often be neglected. This year we have a whole set of events coming up. We will be having a business breakfast with the Ugandan central bank governor. We'll be doing a panel discussion on the Sierra Leonean elections. We will be having a set of hearings for the APPG's inquiry this year into Africa's energy transition, some of which will be open to the public. There is a constant stream. Oh, and we're doing a fantastic book launch for Segun Ganga's memoirs, the former finance minister from Nigeria, coming up in July. So watch our website for all these. Don't miss them. Fantastic events. And the team here are tireless, I would say, in making sure these events take place and are a great success. This year will be a year of change. We have a new director. The new director will help draw up with the council a new strategy, but I know that the energy will be redoubled in the kind of work that we're doing. There will be then, for 2024, a great leap forward for the work the Royal African Society is doing, but building very much on the foundations of what was done before my time and will continue after my time. So that gives you a very quick outline of where the Society is, and this is all thanks, as Arunma has said, to the fantastic support we get from the Council, from our members and supporters and funders and sponsors, and above all from our staff and our volunteers who put in huge amounts of work to make sure that what we do is of the top quality. So there you go. And there, I think that will enable you to join, but you're all members anyway. So thank you very much. And Arunma, back over to you. But still, do read the report. Fantastic.
Please join me in applauding Dr. Westcott for such a phenomenal presentation. He knows I've been convincing him to try and stay, and so he wanted to kind of showcase why I've been convincing him to try and stay. But I always say that when you join a society like the Royal African Society in any way, that you will stay. So I know you're with us and you'll continue to be with us. But I really just wanted to, before I close, to say that for me it's been, it'll be 2 years at the end of July this year since Nick and I have been working together. And it's been phenomenal to work with Nick for many reasons. But for me, the most important is his love for Africa, his love for everybody that he works with, the staff, the council, the stakeholders. I'm always fascinated. You mentioned, Nick, the investment roadshow that we curated for the Togolese, and Nick just started speaking in French, because that of course would endear the Togolese delegation to him. I saw him on the dance floor for the first time during the gala, and I was like, oh wow, he's also a great dancer. But he's so versatile, he's so caring, and I really just want to say formally at the AGM, we'll have time at the reception to say a few more words, to say a big thank you to you on behalf of the council, on behalf of the society. And I know that you'll be available to us, as you've told me, to continue to support us. That's what happens with somebody who said to me, please, I'd like to leave on the other side of Easter, was what you said. And I said, please, can you stay till the end of June? And he's been working tirelessly since I joined, and continues to, and it's a 24/7 job, by the way.
It's true.
No, on his side, because he writes me emails on Sunday nights. So, but I just want to say a big thank you, and please join me in applauding Nick. And thank you very much, because we were able to keep to time as well. I think it's thanks to the staff, and I struggle. We're trying to manage time, and so I was told not to name the names, and I'm going to name them. So Dester, Natasha, Hoder, Ngora, Nico, James. Have I missed anyone? Sonia, and of course Akaite, who just recently joined us, and I see the Africa Rights producer, who I've just met, and all of the volunteers. I cannot thank you enough for all that you do behind the scenes. And I know that it's Nick's leadership that has also enabled all of this, and of course the support of our council members. I'm sure that our newest council members were like, oh my God, even before we get officially co-opted, we're having to work so much. But I think it's a labor of love when you're associated with a society like ours that is 120 years old. And I always say that has the DNA of Mary Kingsley, who really cared so much for Africa. So I'd like to draw our AGM to a close and invite you to join us in the Paul Webley wing for the reception and lunch of the program, for the program of the Africa Rights Festival. And as Nick pointed out, that's taking place at the end of September, early October. So please join me in applauding yourselves for our 122nd AGM. And I hope each and every one of you will be able to join us for the reception under the leadership of Andrew Scaper and Nick Westcott. We put together a program which I hope you will enjoy. Thank you very much.
So,
thank you. Well done. It was a great presentation.